So, guys, welcome to the Five Tools Show. Today we have a really awesome show with wrestling super collector David Peck. David, welcome. Thanks for being here. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show, and looking forward to speaking with you guys and having a good time.
Cool. So I just, yeah, if you don't mind, if we could dive into some of the history of the 82 All-Star set, just kind of, we spoke to Tony Vella, and he referred us to you in a way like, you're the guy to talk about. So it's kind of intriguing for me and Joe also, just because, not too many people know about this stuff. So,
I tell you what kind of specific? I mean, where do you want me to start? What would be a good starting point?
Who's where's the set from? Who are the people behind it? Maybe some of the design. I mean, again, some of the stuff we try to figure out stuff like this with like baseball cards and stuff like that. It's really hard to know. So, info like that's amazing for us. We just love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the Wrestling All-Stars have a very cool sort of history to them. There was a magazine called the Wrestling News, and Norman Keitzer was the editor, and he had done the programs as well for WWF, and then Vince Senior's version, WWF. He did Mid-South, AWA, and some of the other regional promotions. And so in 1982, they released the first set in January. They were mail order only, and you could get them either in the programs at some of the shows, and of course you had to order them, or out of the Wrestling News. Now, they merged with Ring Wrestling in that same time frame, and so you can find the ads in those magazines. And so what's really cool about the cards is if you look at the magazines themselves, they would use the photos that they ran in the magazines on the card. So for example, like Wahoo McDaniel is the oldest photo. It's from 1972. Bruiser Brody, his photo's from 1973. Hulk Hogan, arguably, the best card in all three sets. His is from 1979 when he first debuted in New York as the fabulous Hulk Hogan. So there's three sets, 108 cards. The second set came out mid-year in 82, and then the third set came out in October of 83. And, one of the things that's happened with the cards is there's a lot of people collecting them signed. And there's only one card in the set that's impossible to get signed. It's the Grand Wizard. He died about a week before they started marketing the cards in the magazines. And, they were not hot sellers. I mean, you can actually, if you look in the Wrestling News all the way into 85, there were still advertising Series B and 83. And there's one issue where they say they got some more 82. So I'm guessing they just didn't sell them. So it's got a really cool story. They come in sealed packs. There's no, as a full set, 36 cards in cellophane. And, it's just a great piece of wrestling history.
David, when did this set take off? Because as a kid, I mean, I watched wrestling from around that time. I would say 82, 83, probably up into the late 90s. And I kind of lost, my love to watch it. But I don't remember those cards as a kid. I grew up in New York. I mean, obviously WWF was huge and that, but I don't remember those cards, and I collected a lot of stuff. When did those cards really hit the market, or when were they, like something they are now where they're like top of the line?
Well, in 2009, I started buying them, and I got my first Series A set with a Hogan PSA 9 and a Jerry Lawler PSA 9 for $200. And so I started accumulating them, pretty heavily at the end of 09 into 2010. And then you started seeing some auctions show up, and I ended up getting on the message boards in July of 2010 and started, singing their praises. And so the cards started moving then, but, I mean, they went up. They became sort of collectible. But the last probably 2.5, 3 years, they've moved into a different sort of level. And I credit Gary Vaynerchuk. I mean, he a couple of years ago started saying that trading cards were going to go up in value, and he started showing a few wrestling cards. And so I would comment on his posts, and he started just blowing up my DMs. I'll never forget. I'm at the gym one morning. He's like, "Sell me one of your Hogans. Sell me one of your Hogans." And so, I thought about it for a day or two, and I said, you know what? I'm going to sell him a Hogan. He's going to put it on Twitter, and it's going to go crazy. And, so that was my game plan. And so I would say, honestly, they've been known for, 12, 13 years, but they've entered a different realm in the last probably 2.5 to 3 years.
Wow. And that Hogan is PSA 2, right? And the 9, there's no 10. Is that right?
There's no 10s, and I didn't sell Gary one of those. I sold him. I had an SGC 8, but yeah, there's no 10s. There are BGS 9.5s, but none of those will cross to a PSA 10. There is an SGC 98 before they switch to their new grading sort of number scheme, and that was a PSA 9 that the guy cracked out and sent to SGC. So I don't think you're ever going to see a 10. My first article that came out in the SMR, they interviewed me in 2011, and it ran in 2012. And I said then I didn't think a 10 would ever happen. And so we're actually, since the article, we're 10 years later, and there's still not a 10.
Yeah,
That's unreal.
Well, and I'll tell you something. I bought, if you're familiar with wrestling, Jerry the King Lawler he's in the set, and Norman Keitzer had given him a bunch of sets in '82. And about, I guess, maybe a year and a half ago, I bought his sets. I mean, it had long been known that he had 8 sets.
Wow.
I bought 7, he kept one of them. And one of them was already opened. And then I ripped 3 of them. And, I got a 5, a 5, and a 6 on the Hogans. So I think that, one of the challenge with these is the longer they've stayed in the cellophane, the tougher it can be. And, the other thing is that 82A and 82B, they're not numeric in the pack. So Hogan is card number 2, but he's like in the middle of the pack. If you go to set Series B, Kerry Von Erich is arguably, one of the toughest cards in the set. He's card number 7, but he's card number 2 right behind Rick Martel. Now, the 83 set is 1 through 36, so that's a little different story. So the thing is that I've connected on Twitter with the family that printed these for Norman Keitzer. I did buy a set from them in the last year. That I know they have, some sets, but this was not a high dollar printing operation. People, I mean, hell, in 1982, it's not like Topps was like making pristine cuts and, they had lots of print dots and off center and so on. So they're extremely condition sensitive. And then when you just factor in, many of them are oversized. And so, when we were growing up, we'd buy 9 pocket pages. Well, a lot of these cards don't fit in 9 pocket pages. So, it really screwed up the corners. So it's really interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah, I'm learning. I'm bugging out right now because there's so much information going through my head with that set. Me and Joe talk about that set all the time. Even before we realized your collection and who you were, it was just something that, when you search, I know for me, when I search wrestling cards, I just go back to my childhood. So like all the wrestlers that I enjoyed, or even some of the wrestlers that I didn't even get a chance to watch because where I lived or TV was tough to, you couldn't watch, Florida wrestling with Kevin Sullivan, or, you wanted to watch Bruiser Brody, Texas wrestling. It was tough to watch those guys. So to go back in time and find their cards that you never even saw as a kid, it's so cool as an adult now. So it's like, man, it's very intriguing. And me and Joe talk about this all the time. So when we ran into you, we were just like, whoa, this guy has it,
Well, I tell you, I couldn't agree more. And the thing is so I'm from Orlando, and, so we had Championship Wrestling from Florida. So you mentioned Kevin Sullivan. I didn't know these cards existed until 2009. And I stumbled across them when, Brock Lesnar is my favorite athlete. I mean, Brock's by far my favorite wrestler. And it was UFC 100. And so I was like, let me see if Brock has some of those football cards. I knew he had tried out, and I just kind of wanted to gamble a little bit. And I went online and I found some Brock cards, and I bought a few of his wrestling cards. And I knew that in '85 there was a Hogan Topps. We were collecting baseball, but we did get a couple packs of the WWF. And when I say we, I've got a twin and two other brothers. And so money was really tight. So we were not like that person that could just, go to Walgreens and buy a whole box. It was like 1 pack, 2 packs, etc. And I said, let me see what a Hogan 85 goes for. And I saw a picture or an eBay listing of the 82. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. There's a wrestling card of Hulk Hogan that predates his, primetime WWF days. And anyway, so when I bought them, I had no idea who was in the set. And I get them, and I'm like, Andre the Giant has a card. Kerry Von Erich has a card. Ric Flair has a card. I'm like, this shit's awesome, and it's going to be something. And so I was sort of hooked at that point. And it's really been great because, to your point, if you didn't have cable, or even if you did have cable, you might not have seen a lot of the people in the set. And sort of my favorite story on that front is if you take the Tiger Mask card, right? So I open an 83 set and I'm like, who's this goofy looking dude? And so I go to YouTube and I type in Tiger Mask, and the joke obviously was on me. I mean, you could argue Tiger Mask is the best in-ring performer ever. And so what was great is, really got me to where I sort of researched even more of wrestling's past. I'm 42. So, I knew of a lot of these guys, but there's loads of people in the set that, take a guy like Bruiser Bob Sweeten, right? I never had heard of the guy. And as he's such a piece of shit as a human being, but he was a good wrestler. I mean, he was a good, he's in Joe Blanchard's Southwestern Championship Wrestling. I mean, he was a good promo, good wrestler. And so it was cool to learn about a lot of these people.
Isn't my man Classy Freddie Blassie in that set too?
He is. He's in 83. And 83's got a few managers like Captain Lou and let's see, Jimmy Hart, so it's pretty cool. There's some representation there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when growing up in New York, I grew up at the same time as Joe in New York, and we had WWF. That was it. And any other exposure that you got at that point up to this time, 85, 86, was through the magazines. So we'd see the guys like the Ric Flairs. And I told this to Tony Vella too. When I was a kid in like 3rd grade, somebody had a wrestling magazine and I saw a Tiger Mask. I said, wow, that's awesome. He's the light heavyweight champion or the junior, whatever it was. And Joe will tell you this, we never saw him wrestle. He was never on TV, ever. So it's just really cool. We also always talk about the 82 All-Star set, and that, it's nice that, and it makes sense because it came from, a wrestling publication, that they picked a wide array of wrestlers, not just guys from one federation, especially at a time where everything was all about the federations. They were smart enough to have guys from different territories in the set, and that makes it really special, I think.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, the thing about the Wrestling News is it's a great magazine. I mean, if you ever just feel like kind of looking at old wrestling, they basically chronicled every territory in the country. Now, there's a obvious focus on AWA and WWF in those sets, and Mid-South in particular, they did their programs. But I mean, you have people from all over the country. And growing up, I mean, we didn't have cable. I did get to go down the street to a neighbor's and watch on ESPN, World Class, and then later AWA. But, it's not like that everybody in America had cable, or like take today, for example. the internet wrestling community, I mean, they know about every wrestler that's out there, right? That just wasn't the case. I mean, I think back to when Brock debuted, I had no idea who Brock Lesnar was. I mean, I will never forget. I called my dad. It's 2002. He walks out on SmackDown with Paul Heyman. And, you know, I mean, now I curse with my parents, but I didn't really, you know, I wasn't at that point where, you know, I would, you know, drink or smoke or whatever with them. You know what I'm saying? Like we would just, you know, I was, you know, not that age yet or slightly. So I called my dad up and I said, holy shit, this guy, Brock Lesnar, just walked out. He's going to be the heavyweight champion. Like there's just no doubt in my mind. Well, today you would have known about that guy, you know, 2 years before he hit TV, you know, so it was just a different time.
Yeah.
Totally.
I want to ask you about the print runs. Tony had mentioned there were 6,000. Is that an approximation that there were 6,000 sets made, or because
I think that's high. I mean,
wow.
Jim Cornette says that, I mean, he thought it was only 500. Now, he just sold his sets in Heritage in an auction recently. He thought 500. I mean, I think that's too low. The people that I've connected with from Minnesota that, you know, printed the sets, they think it's more like 2,000. There's not an exact number, but I spent a lot of time on the phone with the guy that worked in the print shop in the last year, and the way they sort of gauge like how many things were printed was how tall the stack was, and he thinks it's consistent with about 2,000. So nobody really knows for certain, and it's all estimation. But you know, if you think about like at 82, let's just take 82 tops. There's probably 600 to 1 million of each card. I mean, there's a lot. Even if there were 6,000, it's really not that high. But if you look at, let's just say the population totals from all three of the major grading companies, it's just around 500 on a Hogan. And of course, he's the most, you know, heavily submitted. So, you know, here we are, we're 13 years into the cards being graded pretty actively, and there's only 500 graded. I would say 6,000 is just way too high. I think 2,000 is more realistic.
Wow. Because when Tony said 6,000, he was like, well, they're not that rare. But from baseball card collecting, 2,000 is extremely rare, or rather 6,000 is really rare. So now you're saying 2,000, even more rare. So, I mean, the prices are warranted. I see cards on eBay for, you know, a lot of money, even the raw cards. You know, there's not like there were a ton of these cards, which is really cool. You know, that's part of the whole appeal, I guess, in a lot of ways, is that, you know, the print run was pretty small. 2,000 sets is nothing, you know, it's nothing.
Well, it's not a lot. And I think that what's interesting is that, you know, if you go back in time when they weren't very valuable, a lot of people probably, I mean, I've seen lots of raw cards surface over the years that were, you know, beat to shit, that are stained. You know, people got to understand something. I mean, these were not valuable collectibles. I mean, there is it's funny, probably maybe 3-4 months ago, I saw this advertisement on Twitter that somebody posted, and it was from the mid 90s. And it was some wrestling outfit that was, you know, selling sort of wrestling merchandise. And they had the 82 set for $25, right? Well, I mean, think about that. $25 in the card world, you know, today isn't anything, but even in the mid to late 90s, I mean, that's when grading took off. I mean, I can remember when I was in college, and you know, the McGuire in 97 and Sammy Sosa chase and into 98. I mean, I'd sit there on eBay at lunchtime in college, you know, in the library. And I mean, a PSA 10 Mark McGuire, you know, Topps Tiffany was like $10,000. A 89 Upper Deck Griffey Jr. PSA 10 was $3,000 or $4,000. So, $25 in relation to that. I mean, these were not valued to any great deal. You take the 83 set, there's a guy online, this guy, Steve Tomake. I don't know if I said his name right, but it's close. And I mean, he was buying these things for like $5 a pop up until 2007, 2008. Now a sealed 83 sets, at least $1,000. So, it's just a different time. And so I think it's great. I mean, obviously, I'm sort of biased because I have so many of them, but the reality of it is that I think it's nice that wrestling's history is worth something.
Yeah, for sure.
I agree. I feel like this whole set needs a documentary. You know what I'm saying? It needs a doc. Like, it's so interesting. And there's so many wrestling collectors and even people that don't know as much as you, like me and Joe, but we're just so into it because we grew up on it. And when something has such a mystery to it, it makes it more interesting, obviously too. And it's not something where some of the sets like the Japanese sets or maybe some wrestlers, maybe we only know a few. I mean, we're basically familiar with all these wrestlers. So that's what makes it so special.
I totally agree. I mean, if you look at take the BBM sets, right? And, I like Rob Van Dam. He's in the 96 BBM. There's like 400 something cards in the set. And I got to tell you something. There's probably 350 of the guys that I have absolutely, and women too. I have no idea who these people are. You can't say that to your point with these sets.
Yeah.
You pulling out Rob Van Dam? Yeah, baby.
I think I showed it to you on Twitter. You said, because I bought one box on eBay and I got them in like the, 15, 16 pack. And you said you ran through a few, you didn't get one.
I opened 4 boxes, and let me tell you something. It's not exactly a fun box to open because you don't know who a lot of the people are. So you're sifting through a pack and you're like, oh, okay.
You see like Kamala and you're like, oh, it's Kamala or Abdul the Butcher. And you're like, yes, there's a few, and there's some American guys in there. I'm like, who the hell are these dudes? I've never seen these guys before in my life. But yeah, it is. But I tell you what, the photography, the costumes, the shape of the cards, I mean, it's a phenomenal set as well. It really is. I mean, like you said, it was tough because I didn't know many people, but I mean, it's a beautiful set.
Well, they did a great job. And the thing is that what's also really cool is if you look at the 95 set, 96, they have Pancrase in there. They've got some of the other fighting leagues. I mean, there's checklists out there where you can sort of see how it's identified. Like I was not trying to think of the guy's name, Suzuki, right? And he was on AEW. I was not impressed with those matches, like him versus what's his name, Dean Ambrose. I'm like, okay, this is it was not very exciting. But he's in that set, right? And I'll give you an example. Baz Rutten from MMA, he's in that set. What's it called? Frank Shamrock's in the set.
Shamrock, yeah.
I see fighting and pride fighting and stuff like that. Different Japanese pride fight. Yeah. That's interesting.
Dynamite Kid, I believe.
I wonder if there's like a Royce Gracie card somewhere.
There is, and I'm not allowed. My buddy Rob England, Rob has been very, very good at identifying cards and getting them graded for the first time. And there's definitely a Royce Gracie out there from Japan. I promised him I wouldn't tell people from where it's at. So, but you can figure it out. I mean, the nice thing about this stuff is research and searching, and it's not really hard.
Yeah. Let me ask you. So the 82 Cosmos set, you posted a couple of you posted a couple of cards on Twitter. Amazing. Super rare, right? Like these came out of vending machines, from what I understand.
Yeah, so they came in little packs of 2, and they came from Japanese vending machines. There's 6 cards in the set, and so much of card discussion now has sort of moved to Twitter, right? And I think it's good. That's why I spend my time there. But for years, I was on the PSA message board or Net 54 and Blowout. There was a guy on the various boards that, is like a sort of Japanese wrestling card expert. I mean, I'm not. I just, quite frankly, I would see what people would post and say, okay, that's good. I'll go try to buy it. And so anyway, this guy knows a lot about it, and he was able to buy some sealed packs, maybe 8-9 years ago. And yeah, so they come in two. There are these little cards, and they came from vending machines, and I think it's really cool. I mean, you think like here in America, I posted some the other day, those the WMMC Prism stickers that were put out by AWA, and those are pretty meaningful to me, just from the standpoint that I can remember in 1985 being at Kmart on 436 in Orlando and being like, Mom, I really want these. And, they were like 25 cents or 50 cents, and, we couldn't buy them. So it's just kind of fun to have that stuff when you're an adult.
Those stickers are awesome, man. I just came across, I think I came across a Tonga Kid one on eBay. I mean, even him, it was like $600. I mean, just for, I think it was ridiculous.
Yeah, but the hard part right now about wrestling cards is, people have lost their minds on some of these prices. I mean, I'm all for the market going up. I mean, clearly I'm very entrenched and, heavily invested, but that's like a $50 item, maybe 75, but 600, come on.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. But that's why that stuff sits there. And see, what was interesting is, back in like 2010, there was probably 3,000 active wrestling card listings. So you could browse through stuff and hunt, and it was cool. Now, I mean, I haven't looked lately, but I did a search earlier this year, and there was over 100,000 wrestling card listings. So think about 33 times as many. I mean, it's a lot. And that's the thing. I mean, the wrestling card market has changed so much because it's so many people have come into it, which I obviously like. But it's also brought in, a lot of these, not just speculators, but, people trying to, flip stuff at prices that just aren't realistic.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's throughout the entire trading card hobby at this point. But one of the good things about it is that even though we're not seeing, the market where it was at the height of, say, the pandemic or whatever, there been, a nice new level that it's set at, especially with wrestling cards, I've noticed. I mean, so that's a good thing. I mean, but when you have specific cards like you have that are so rare, it kind of doesn't even matter, right? I mean, the economy is good or bad, there's going to be some person making money, and there's going to be somebody who's going to want like one of those Hogans, so it's just so cool. Like the cards that you have, amazing. Like when you're talking about condition and the fact that you have these cards in nines, is just incredible. Cause I don't see anything in a 9. When I look on eBay, there might be a card in a 9, a common or not as, whatever. And it's still a ton of money. So just amazing,
Well, I think dude, I just kept buying and buying and buying, and I submitted a lot of my cards. I was really active in just buying raw sets, and because the reality of it is that my goal was to try to build out my registry sets with PSA. So you can either pay what dealers at the time were trying to get or the market was getting, or you could, find that raw card and submit it yourself. And so, but I also, was, just pretty optimistic on their future. The thing with now is, I'll give an example. Like I posted, so I've got a good friend, this guy, Greg Weiss, that he lives in Miami, and Greg has a unbelievable collection, and he has probably the most signed wrestling cards of anybody, and good stuff, like major stuff. And he he has that 1993 Chris Jericho card from Mexico, and he got offered 18,500 for it, right? Like I never would have guessed that. But see, the thing about it is that Greg has money, so he doesn't have to like the average person. You offer them $5,000 for that card, and they're like sold. You offer Greg 18.5, he's like, no, that's not enough. And so the thing with wrestling that is unique is that a lot of the best material is in strong hands. I have so in the PSA set registry, and Greg, his sets aren't listed, and he would be competitive, but he wouldn't be at the top. I mean, definitely wouldn't be at the top, but so I'm number one in the registry on the All-Stars, right? And there's a guy named Ray from Hawaii that's number two. And this guy, he's like a kamikaze when rare card would come up where you just knew at the end, Ray's coming in, like here comes the snipe. And so in the 83 set, Joey Graben, he just changed his name back to Joey Graben on Twitter, but I liked it, Daddy Fat Stacks for a time. And I think he was just obviously having fun. So Joey is literally half a grade behind me in the 83 set. Okay. So 82, it's not close. 83, it's not close. Excuse me, 82B, it's not close. But 83, Graben is literally like right on my heels as far as the top set. So Ray is a little behind him. Ray's number two and 82A and 82B. So Graben sends Ray a message, offered him $5,000 for his Gino Hernandez PSA 10. Now that's a pop 3. I've got 2, and Ray has 1. Ray says no. So that's the thing about the wrestling stuff is that so much of the gold was dug years ago, and it's in strong hands, and so that's why you're able to see some of these prices on the more rare stuff just sort of climb because you can't replace it. You know what I mean? Like you cannot, you just can't get it back. So if you're selling it, you better be happy with the price.
Sure. Are you still actively trying to upgrade your set?
Oh yeah, I never stop. I mean, I've got in the 82 I've got 12 complete sets on the registry. I think I got a 13th listed. I can't remember, but yeah, I mean, I check eBay every day. I mean, my buying pattern is, very slow right now. It's been slow for a while, but I'm always looking for cards that can improve my collection. The Carnation wrestling cards, I don't know if y'all are familiar with those. That's a small little set from 1985. The grading companies have it at 86, but it's 85. And, that one I'm always checking for too. And trying to find, my goal is to try to find, I have the highest rated Road Warriors, but, it's an 8.5. And, I'd really like to try to uncover a 9 one day of that card. And so, yeah, I'm always on the hunt. It just that, we're just at a time where it's hard to advance the stuff. I haven't had an upgrade on any of my Wrestling All-Star sets, I think in like 3+ years.
What are your thoughts on the Monty Gum set?
I think it's a mixed bag, and what I mean by that is this: the boxes have the worst coalition of any box of any card I've ever opened. Sometimes my buddy Rob, and Rob England's his name, he goes by Wrestling Card King. And Rob opened a box recently, and he had great distribution of cards, right? Well, years back, I opened 2 boxes, and I kid you not, I got 23, 25, and 2 of the same packs. Now, most people would say, oh, the box was searched. Well, that's not true. I got all Hogan's and Road Warriors. So it wasn't, I mean, it wasn't like it was a dud. It wasn't all Jesse Barr and, you know, and bums, right? But the thing with the packs is they're like photo cards. So there's the cards are stuck together with chads. Well, if you go back in time, PSA did not know that. And so these dealers out of California trimmed them, right? So they cleaned up the top and bottom and made them real sharp. So if you look at a lot of those in holders, they don't have the chad on top and bottom. Now, in recent years, PSA changed their stance to hand cut, right? And that was after the Gary Moser trimming scandal. You know, they went and looked at everything and they made that change. Same with the 85 Wrestling All-Stars, you know, those now say hand cut, right? So I do think that some of the cards are cool. Obviously, there's a Savage in the set that is popular. There's some great images of Hogan. There's some great images as Flair. I love the blood in the set. It may be the only set of wrestling cards that has blood. I'm not sure, but I think so. But the thing about it is, it's a bootleg set. It was printed out of Holland for distribution in Saudi Arabia. And the way I figured that out was George Napolitano, the wrestling photographer, he had asked me, you know, to try to figure out what the story was, because so many of his photographs from his magazines are on the cards. Well, what they basically just lifted the photographs and put them on the cards, and you'll see on some of the cards like the text from the actual magazine. So I wouldn't say I dislike the set, but I'm not like the hugest fan. I've got a bunch of them signed. I think they're great for that. But from the grading standpoint, which is kind of where I've patterned a lot of my collection, I just think that there's so many of them that are trimmed in holders that it's hard for me to get excited.
Yeah. Like I saw one online for 400 complete set, and the cards do look like they're in nice condition, but I'm thinking maybe just by the grade. I mean, there are probably 3 cards or 4 cards in that set that I want. Mostly the Savage, you know, that's, I guess, considered the Savage rookie. I don't know, but I do like that card. So I'm thinking, I could get that card for, you know, $150, $160 in a decent grade, a collector's grade, as opposed to buying the whole set. But I do like the idea of the whole set, because I kind of wish I would do with wrestling cards what I never did with baseball cards, which is sets and slabs, you know, not like having a gazillion cards I don't even know what to do with. So the idea of owning that set, as weird as it is kind of cool for me. But do you think that's a good, decent price, or?
It's not too bad. I mean, the thing about it is that boxes. So for example, those boxes I ripped, you know, they were $50 a piece, right? Well, I think Rob paid $400 or $500 for a box. Now he's going to win, and he's going to win big because, you know, he had good distribution of cards. I did see a complete set recently go for, you know, maybe little over 300, something like that. You know, I think that the thing that people have got to keep in mind is a lot of these as singles, you get some very good breakup value, right? So let's just take, there's 100 cards in the set. So at $4 a card, let's say the Savage Raw is just $50. I'm just picking a number. I get it. It's, you know, been higher, but let's just say it's $50. Well, now your raw cost is $3 on the other 99, or $2.90, right? So you can really back your way into a win. So if you decided, you know, like I don't have the time for this and the inclination, but let's say you got onto COMC and listed commons, and let's just say that the Hogans, because there's some cool Hogans. There's a Hogan with Sylvester Stallone. There's one him playing the guitar. There's one with him with Joan Rivers. Let's say you listed those at $25 a piece, and they sat there for 6 months, but finally somebody buys them. Well, now all of a sudden you're in the rest of the carts for like $2 a piece. So it's I use so I got my degree in economics, right? And so that's what really turned me on to cards, was that the economics of it just made so much sense. And so, if you really break down stuff, if you really give it some thought, and you sort of map out, what the probabilities of success are, I think 400 you can win. You're not going to kill it unless, you grade the stuff and they go high, but I don't think you're going to lose money.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes. What do you think about modern wrestling cards? Do you have any interest in the modern cards, or?
Well, I don't, but I will say this. I'm thrilled that you're seeing these independent sets doing well. I like the fact that you're seeing the FCW sets doing well, the Roman Reigns cards and so on. I just, I watch wrestling today, but I'm just not as connected to it. I would much rather get on YouTube and watch Bruiser Brody swing his chain in Japan than I would current wrestling. Now, that said, MJF, for example, it's funny. The first time I did an interview, and it wasn't on video. I don't know if this is going to be on video somewhere or not, but I did a phone interview, and it was right when AEW was sort of coming online. And the person said, same kind of question, are you into wrestling today or modern stuff? And I said, no, but I said, this guy MJF, I said, this guy's got a lot of potential. This guy, his interview is very, very good. He gets real heat, he stays in character. So I do think that, one, if people are collecting for fun, there's obviously loads of opportunity for that. But two, I do think that some of these guys, you're going to see some markup in prices over the years. I mean, I think that, like MJF, I mean, he's here to stay for a time. Roman Reigns is sort of debatable in terms of, I think that he's very talented, but, WWE seems to have a hard time like keeping the guys, really on top. And I think Roman over the years has, I don't know if he's a great looking guy. He's got an awesome body. And I think that a lot of the wrestling fans are almost envious of some of these studs, right? Like, it's like reverse racism, if you will, but they just want to hate on the guys that look so good and are so studly. And I don't get it, but that's reality. So I think Roman is a tough call because, he's a stud, and there's so many of these fans that they just want to shit on anybody that looks successful or is successful, right? So you need people that are sort of real wrestling collectors to buy those cards. And I hope for their sake they work out, but I just don't have any desire to try to play that game, right? Like, if I buy a John Cena rookie, John Cena is a legend, right? Like, he's already made it. Hulk Hogan, he's one of the top pop culture ever. But there's at least a better chance.
Yeah,
David,
John Cena
David,
is huge.
Go ahead, Joe.
Movies, and just John Cena is massive. He's in all over the place in all types of movies, and it's with the reality shows and the Bella Twins and all that stuff. Like, they've definitely taken it to another level. So for sure, I'm I don't watch the modern wrestling, but I've seen MJF when he was in the indies, like really small level shows. And I always said, oh, this kid's going to do something. He's going to, this kid, he has something to him, you can tell with certain wrestlers. And yeah, that's cool. I always feel like in any era, with wrestling, you'll find some real characters, some really, but you're finding less and less of that now because it's less about the characters and it's more about whatever. I'm not really entirely sure, but there are always guys that people are going to gravitate toward and have love for, like a Randy Savage or whatever, Roman Reigns. I mean, I think the WWE didn't, do the right thing with him as far as the way they marketed him in the beginning. They should have just let him be like a heel or whatever. Just, they just did the wrong thing with him. They tried to make him a heel, then they tried, or whatever they did. First he was a nice guy, then they tried to make him, it's just like, whatever, man. So, but I feel
it's hard for you to like be like, dude, I really want to like own his cards for like my personal collection, right? Like maybe a speculator. And what I try to do is I don't poo-poo what anybody collects, right? Because for years, everybody, made fun of what I collected, and that's just not my deal. But at the end of the day, you look at, so I separate wrestling cards into wrestling cards and pop culture. So, I don't hardly ever sell, but I did sell some cards to Steve Aoki, the DJ, right? And he doesn't want Dick Murdoch, he doesn't want Bruiser Brody. Those are guys that we would appreciate. He wanted John Cena, he wanted The Rock, and he wanted Hulk Hogan. So, if you're going to appeal to a bigger audience, they got to have that pop culture effect to them.
Makes sense. I get it. And I'm the type, I was on eBay the other night. I'm an hour deep into Stan Hansen and the Great Kabuki. I don't know. I just love the dudes, like I said, that I couldn't see, and I want them now in my collection. But I had to ask you before I forget, it's a two-part question. What is a card that was the most gratifying for you that you looked forever and finally found it? And on the other side of it, is there a card that you've been searching for forever or you always wanted that you haven't found yet?
Well, I would say that I was only a couple of years into the deal, but I mean, I tried everything to get an Andre PSA 9. And I bought BGS cards. I bought several BGS 9s, 8.5s, 8s, I did I have 36 Andres. And but the reason is, some of it is just, I just like the card, but I was doing everything I could to find nice ones. So the Andre 9 I have, I bought it in a holder. I never submitted that, but that was the card that I really, was like, wow, I want that. But the thing is, it changes, right? So then, 6-8 years later, when I got my Kerry Von Erich 10, that was a gut-wrenching week, with the auction and coming down to the close. There's no real holy grail out there that I haven't been able to buy. Because remember, a lot of the stuff's available. It's sort of the grade, right? Mm-hmm. There is something out there right now I'm looking for that I haven't bought. It won't be expensive unless I tell people what it is, because the reality of it is that if I, and this has been going on for years, if I say that I'm looking for something, well, then all of a sudden everybody else starts looking for it, not necessarily want it because they want to sell it to me, and so they sort of hold it against you. Like you take I posted the other day some of those Rax roast beef cards, right?
Yeah.
Hey, so far, there's only 4 or 5 copies of each card left that we know of. They are, it's not even close. They are the most rare wrestling cards that exist. And so it took me 7+ years to track down a set of those. That was I did a post the other day. I said, this was my Honus Wagner of my David Schultz card. I tried everything to get those. But the item I'm looking for right now is I don't even know how rare it is. You just don't really see them. But I'm not talking about it because, like I said, then what'll happen is somebody will, as soon as they find one, then they're going to buy it. Then they're going to try to double, triple, quadruple the price on me, so I kind of learned my lesson over the years, that now at this stage, you got to keep that one to the vest, but it's not a grail. You would never be like, oh my God, like, wow, that's like so awesome. It's just, I just want to get it, and then I'll tell people.
How many cards were in that roast beef set?
Well, it's 22 cards plus a header card, right?
Oh,
So what's cool is the header card is a free, you could redeem it for French fries, right? So it's, I would argue that my header card that's graded is probably the rarest card associated with any wrestling set. Now it's obviously just a coupon, but I mean, think about it, 1979. And so basically the Rax cards were handed out, I think it's, November 22nd, 1979 at the Thanksgiving Spectacular at the Nick Goulas, his show in Nashville, right? And so it says, I found the flyer, and it says that they will hand out a set to each family. Now, they printed 1,200 sets, and I'm telling you something, in 13 years of searching eBay every single day for wrestling cards, because I check every single day still, I've seen 3 listings for Rax cards in 13 years. This set, so I got really lucky. What had happened is I saw on the back of one that there was this guy named Scott Teal. And I said, wait a second, I'm reading a book by this guy. So I emailed Scott Teal and asked him about the cards. He goes, yeah, I've got a set, but I won't sell them. And I said, okay. So he goes, what do you think they're worth? I said, 500, 1,000. And this was 5 or 6 years ago, right? And so he said he won't sell them. So I sort of I don't want to say I gave up, but I just left it at that. Well, I'm on this Memphis wrestling Facebook page, and all of a sudden he posts a picture of the sealed set of Rax cards. And, so I don't, so I'm a financial advisor, and I really don't get time off.
Mm-hmm.
And so I, every once in a while, I would take like a Friday afternoon and go chill at the pool at like 2:30. Market closes at 4, but I'd cut a little bit early and just sort of be available. And I see that, and oh man, I just start sending message to him immediately. I said, I've got to buy this. I'm like, 1,000, no. 2,000, no. 3,000, no. He goes, well, let's talk. Well, he agreed to 2,000. And so I bought the set, and, I get them in hand, and I was like, gosh, I don't know if I should rip these. And finally I just said, screw it, I'm ripping them. And so anyway, so I ripped open the packs, and it turned out great. I got some Jim Mint cards, which was mind boggling. We saw for the first time ever, Haku, his Prince Tonga cards in there. And then, which is so badass. And, but the David Schultz was who I was after, because, if you go back to 1984, I would argue that moment where Schultz, slaps John Stossel, I mean, that was so cool. Like here it is, like everybody likes to make fun of wrestling. And here's this guy that's 265 pounds, and the guy's asking him these stupid questions, and he says, too bad, bitch, and just drops him, And so I just had to have that card. And, to this day, there's only 47 cards graded from PSA. It's basically 2 complete sets and two singles, and then the coupon. But, in 1979, nobody wanted the cards. They wanted the fries. So the cards we have seen surface, a lot of them have, and I say a lot, there's been like very little, but of the card surface, they have stains on the back like they were picked up off the floor, right?
Yep.
So that is, I mean, it's not even debatable. That is the most rare set of wrestling cards. It's really not close.
So to finish off, what advice would you give to people who are just any kind of collector? Trading card collector. What advice would you give them on if they're just getting into it in the beginning?
Well, one, I would respect whatever your budget is, right? Like I don't really have a budget. In one, because I don't buy much anymore, but two, I'm in a different financial position than I was 13 years ago. But respect your budget. Like, do not find yourself in a position where you have to sell cards, because we've been on this upward trend, right? Like, so the markets have done well. A lot of stuff has pulled back some, not all, but a lot. And you don't want to find yourself in a position of weakness. I'll give you an example. So I don't exactly remember when the tape of Hogan came out where, he was doing Bubba the Love Sponge wife, and, he's talking to her, and, he's talking about Brooke and making the comments and stuff, right? And literally overnight, the 82 All-Star Hogan, dropped 60% in value. Like literally, and I had like 20 something copies at that time. Obviously I wasn't happy, but I liked the card. I loved the card. So I didn't need, and I wasn't going to sell it. Right. So I didn't need to. But if all of a sudden you're playing with money that's not yours, or that you're playing with money that, might be your rent money in 6 months, it's a really bad idea, because there can be huge turbulence in asset prices, whatever they are, right? The other advice I would give is, buy what you like, because if you buy what you like, one, you're going to get a lot of enjoyment out of it. But two, once again, if it goes down, it's not the end of the world. What really got me heavy into cards was I speculate on the stock market, right? And I've been doing that since, I was 18 years old. Well, in 2008 into 2009, I got my ass kicked. Bad. I was trading options, and, I literally was like lighting money on fire. And so I started buying cards in mass, because I said, you know what? They can't go to zero. Maybe it goes down 50%, maybe it goes down 75%, but it's not going to zero. But the other side is, if it goes up, right, it can go up a lot. And so I just think that people need to understand that, there's ebbs and flows in markets, and you don't want to be buying stuff where you find yourself in a position that you have to sell. I think that's a very dangerous situation. I'll never forget, there used to be this guy in, maybe it was 2011, that was buying the All-Stars, and he was bidding them up. And then all of a sudden he needed money. Well, guess what? You think my bid is what I'm not, if I was the underbidder, you think my bid's the underbid? Hell no. I bid like 25%, and he was hurting for cash, and I got the cards, right? So I think, and now the markets are deeper, there's a lot more people, so I don't know that that's going to happen. But buy stuff that you are willing to hold, that you really like, and try to get some enjoyment out of it. And then I also would say is, kind of focus on something, right? Like, so, maybe you dabble a little bit, buy a little bit of other stuff, but you find something you really like, just kind of go in that direction, and I think you'll get a lot of enjoyment out of it.
That's awesome, brother.
Well, David, man, it's really been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on.
Sure.
Love to, learn all this stuff about all these wrestling cards, because, for me and Joe, we're such wrestling fans, but the card aspects are new. We're mostly baseball guys. So it's really awesome to have you on here, and we appreciate, you answering the questions. And it was really cool, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm always, one of the things I've enjoyed about doing these type shows is that, we're trying to grow the hobby, right? And the way you grow the hobby is with information and just letting people in on, really what exists, right?
Totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah, your insight's amazing, man. We appreciate it.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, and good luck. And a lot of times at the end of these shows, people say, "Where do you find me?" I'm dpeck100 on Twitter. And to you guys, like, if you ever have any questions, just hit me up in the DMs, and I answer everybody, and and just try to keep people as informed as possible.